Hello everyone, welcome back to Wills, Trust and More. And of course, Eileen, Kerlin, Walsh is with us. And Eileen is going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We're not talking about gun control, but we're talking about guns that are in someone's estate and what you do about this and how does this process take place. Eileen?
Thank you, Ron. Yes, delighted to be here again. As you know, one of our jobs as an estate planning attorney is to examine our clients' assets, see what they have, and help them transfer those upon death. Now, guns show up often in our clients' assets. We have an estimated 240 million guns in the US. Over 38% of households have at least one. Americans use guns for protection, for recreation, they have collections, they have heirlooms. So this is an asset that we have to be able to deal with. Traditionally, it was very difficult to deal with this asset because all the authority with these strictly regulated weapons died with the gun owners. So what was an executor to do? An executor wouldn't have the knowledge, they wouldn't know about the particular weapons, how to use them, how to take care of them, how to transfer them. They didn't have authority to even touch them or handle them.
Sure touch on it, yes.
So it really did leave an executor of an estate with the best will in the world in a position to subject themselves to criminal and civil liability and the weapons to seizure. So there was no perfect way to handle it. We would have often recommended a bill of sale, but even a bill of sale, listing the weapons, the serial numbers and whom they were going to, was really a lifetime transfer. So while it took care of the transfer at death, it wasn't a perfect solution. And now we have gun trusts, and while they're not near as widely used as living trusts, they are growing in popularity, and they really do present the answer to a lot of those hurdles that guns presented for estate planners and for executors of estates.
Okay, tell us, what is gun trust?
What is a gun trust?
Yes.
A gun trust is a revocable living trust, which we've talked about all the time, but it's specifically designed to hold guns only. It holds guns, it allows for the use, the purchase, the possession, the transfer of those guns during lifetime, and the transfer after death. It's specifically designed for those weapons. And the advantages of having that trust is we get rid of those problems we talked about earlier. The trustee now has the authority to handle the weapon, have it appraised, have it cared for, have it cleaned, know whom it can go to, whom it cannot go to. The trust document itself has all the state and federal law that the trustee needs to know. So all that the trustee needs is right there in that document. They're not in the dark. They have the authority. They know whom the gun owner, the trust maker, intended for the guns to go to. They even have the discretion to determine if those beneficiaries have the mental capacity at the time of the gun owner's death.
Good point.
If they have the maturity, the responsibility, and if that recipient is in compliance with state law. For example, Illinois requires every gun owner to have a FOID, a fire owner card.
I was going to just bring that up.
Absolutely. So there's state requirement and there's federal requirement. And this gun trust, with the knowledge of all those gun laws, is going to get it all in the document. And every trustee who will ever handle the gun, will ever handle the weapons, are going to be able to do everything they need to do, including transfer after death. So they really do provide a workable solution to the problems.
Well, what I'm concerned about is, what if there is someone in the family that is going to receive these assets and has dementia?
Well, if either the gun owner themselves get dementia or someone who's to get a gun from the trust, this is where the trustee has the discretion. I mean, often gun owners, well, we all know, we've talked about dementia and how prevalent it is many times in this show. Gun owners are as subject to dementia as the rest of us, which is now down to, I think, 1 in 3. So that's such a strong possibility that dementia incapacity is a really important part of the equation. So the gun owner, if they become incapacitated, typically would have a power of attorney for property. Now that has a wonderful place in estate planning, but rarely is going to handle firearm law, and rarely rarely is that agent going to have this very special knowledge or the authority under that document. That's not what the document is designed for. So if we have one of these gun trusts, then the trustee can take over during dementia, because when the trust is set up, all the trustees are named. The acting trustees, the successor trustees during life and after death, and they have the authority. A gun trust, as with any trust, it involves the trust owning the weapon, the trust owning the contents of the trust. So the trustee is just whoever happens to have the authority. It's an important mental switch in understanding trust, and it's why that backup trustee can now take over. And Ron, there's also another really important part of this equation when we're talking about guns. Not all firearms are the same. And the Gun Control Act of 1968 divided weapons into two categories. And there's category 1, which is conventional rifles, handguns. Those are not as strictly federally regulated, are fairly easy to get licensed and fairly easy. Now, there's certainly still red tape to transfer into a trust, but there's an important category called Title II, which is very restricted weapons, such as sawn-off guns, machine guns. Some people do own these, some people do own them legally, and these are such a minefield for an agent under power of attorney or an executor. So a gun trust now takes away some of those problems, because that gun, that ownership, that registration always has to go through the ATF, the Federal Bureau. Well, what you can do with the gun trust is draft it according to the requirements, have it registered with the ATF, have it approved. It can take months. You're dealing with a federal and a very large bureaucracy. But if you go through all the steps, get the gun trust authorized, legal, then all the approved trustees can handle those very restricted, very, very difficult weapons that really could leave someone dealing in a very difficult position if they now find themselves having to deal with that asset, because gun ownership is very subjective and is something that not everyone feels strongly about. There are those who want to have them and go through all the legal steps and use them recreationally, but a power of attorney taking over or an executor may feel differently, may sell them, may not have the knowledge that they shouldn't do that, may allow unauthorized use or access. So there's such a minefield, really, if you pardon the pun, when it comes to owning these kinds of weapons. So gun trusts gotten into place in advance and properly registered, and if we have these category 2, make sure everything is blessed by the ATF, you really can make sure that the gun owner can continue to enjoy those weapons if that's what they want to have and do, and anyone who takes over during incapacity or after death has all the requisite authority to do so. Now, you asked about a beneficiary who might have dementia. There are prohibited persons, and that's why there has to be very special knowledge in this field. Prohibited persons from gun ownership in any way are someone who may have a felony conviction, certain violent misdemeanors, somebody with a history of mental illness or dementia. They can never own a weapon, and a weapon can never be transferred to them. So those lists of prohibited persons are exactly what a gun trust, part of what a gun trust would contain within the trust document. So the trustee would know that if someone developed dementia, they could never, that's mental illness, they could never get or receive the weapon, and there would be alternative instructions. So it's really about education. It's about complying with the law, these gun trusts, and it's about educating the trustee in the terms of the document and during lifetime. So if someone is setting up a gun trust and they're naming additional agents, trustees, they're going to make sure that those trustees know what guns are in the trust, know their history, their care, because guns, like every other asset, for those people who have specialized ones, do need certain care and maintenance. They often have to be appraised. An executor couldn't even get a gun appraised without the authority to physically handle it, to have it in their possession.
Right.
So it's really important when you're in this field that you strictly comply with the law to keep the gun owners, the executors, administrators, trustees, as well as beneficiary, all in compliance. And that's what we aim to do.
And basically what we're saying is that if there is a trustee or an executor that knows that the transfer that's about to take place upon death, finding that there is an issue with that person, they can stop the transfer.
Oh, absolutely. They have this discretion. So
Right.
it's the first level of discretion is with the trustee. The second level of discretion is if we do have these very restricted Title II weapons within the trust, even the transfer still has to be approved by the ATF, and they're also not going to approve a transfer to someone who no longer is someone who could take title to that asset. So there's many levels of protection and safeguard, as indeed there should be, and it's exactly what the gun owner would want.
You know, you covered all the complications and variables that are involved. Are there other lifetime advantages to
Yes,
a gun
yes.
estate?
Because when a gun is owned individually and the gun owner is not a prohibited person and has gone through all their state and federal regulations to get licensed to approved, that approval, that license is just with the individual. Now, often families will want to use the guns for recreation. People will want to share with their friends at the range or with their spouse or their adult children if they're hunting in the woods, and you cannot do that. The individual cannot even let a spouse use that gun because that's now not approved. So if you want to use these guns for a family's recreation, the gun trust is a way to get everyone approved at the same time. And everyone who's named in the trust as a trustee is approved. They don't all have to be have an individual license. They each have to have their state license, of course. You always, when you're complying with the law, we always have to start with the top, comply with the big law here, which is absolutely the federal law, then comply with the state law, and even comply with your local law enforcement's rules and regulations. But we have to make sure that everybody is in compliance. So the lifetime advantage is absolutely the power of attorney agency issue that a successor trustee can take over during incapacity, but also even without incapacity, there's the ability for a group, a category to share the weapons and to all equally have the legal authority to do so.
Wow, what a complicated thing. The topic is just unbelievable.
Our assets are as complicated as we are, Ron.
Yeah, you're right. That's it depends on how you want to make it. Do you want to have anything that you want to close with? Any comments to kind of summarize?
I would like to clarify, Ron, that we estate planning attorneys are not taking a position on gun ownership. We're not advocating. We're not encouraging. We are neutral as to that asset. You know, what I do and what I know all responsible estate planning attorneys do is take our clients' assets and their wishes for that asset seriously. We respect everything that they want to do. And if they choose to have this type of asset and they come to us for help with managing their assets during incapacity or transferring their assets after death, if they're not a prohibited person, if they have legal ownership or intend to take legal ownership, go through all the requisite legal steps, and they don't intend to pass the asset to a prohibited person, we can help them do that. That's our job. We take it very seriously, and with Gun Trust we now have a tremendous vehicle that we did not used to have to help us do so and protect everyone involved.
Okay, very good. Eileen, you really covered a topic that's very complicated, and you certainly do need professional advice to walk you through this whole thing. I am just amazed as to all the things that are involved with a gun estate. It's just amazing. But thank you for coming out and sharing this with the viewers. And for those viewers that have some questions, we're going to put Eileen's phone number and address at the bottom of the screen. Give her a call, and she will walk you through whatever your question is, and we'll go from there. So Eileen, thank you again for coming out, sharing this with the viewers.
Pleasure.
And we will be bringing an interesting topic again very shortly. Stay with us. We'll see you next time.